Silksong is the sequel to the renowned game Hollow Knight. After 7 years of being in development, it is finally here. It is one of, if not the biggest, indie releases of 2025. And while everyone, including myself, has been incredibly excited for it, I can't say that it is the knockout everyone was hoping for. By no means am I saying this is a bad game, because it certainly isn't. I just think that it could have been one of the best if the introduction was as polished as the rest of the game. You play as Hornet, a princess who has been captured and is being carted to a new land for reasons unknown to you. Something helps you to break from your cage, you fall into a deep pit, and none of your captors survive. This is where the game begins. You are on a journey to find out who wants you and why. Similar to the first game, this is also a metroidvania Souls-like platformer, but it has grown to be more than just that. With the addition of main quests, trackable side quests, a much more interactive world, and a full suite of build customization, I would argue that this has also expanded into the RPG territory. However, this is the only real growth that I see between the two games. They have added new mechanics and taken the game into a new direction, which has been great to experience, but they also haven't fixed some of the problems of the first game. I want to reiterate, this is not a bad game, but it is far less approachable than I thought it would have been. I believe that Silksong very easily could have been a top contender for Game of the Year if they had spent more time working on the difficulty scaling. My perspective of this game has changed as I made my way through it. In the first act of the game, I was feeling very disappointed by the difficulty tuning, but as I got deeper, I really started enjoying it. This is because I feel the first act is not well balanced. It's way too hard for the start of the game, where you have a small health pool and no upgrades. This leads to frustration that may put many players off. But if you have the tenacity to push past that, you will find a fantastic core beneath a rough outer crust. Before I go any further, I would like to note that this game is very similar to Hollow Knight. Because of that, I am not going to explain what it means for a game to be a Metroidvania, a Souls-like, or a platformer, as I already did that in my Hollow Knight review. Instead, I will be focusing on what makes this game different, for the better and for the worse. You don't have to watch that video to be able to understand this one, but if you haven't heard these terms before, then that video may help. The first thing I want to talk about is how this has become an RPG. A large element of the first game was being directionless. Not being told where to go can be fun when you want to explore for yourself, but I am very happy to say that this has been fixed in the best way possible. There is now a simple main quest marker to guide you, a single pin on your map in the middle of the darkness that indicates where you should end up. It's still up to you to decide how much or how little you want to explore. This allows you to control when you want to progress the storyline or not. It's a small change, but it makes a big impact on reducing how overwhelming an empty map can be. In addition to this, there are also plenty of side quests that you can pick up by talking to the local bugs or checking in on the job posting boards. This feels really good, because it gives you reasons to backtrack. Typically in Metroidvanias, going back to old areas to find bonus loot is completely up to you. The introduction of strategically designed side quests encourage you to go back to older, incomplete areas when you get new abilities. As you explore, you will come across different towns that may need your help. Putting your time into assisting the townsfolk can be beneficial for you. As the town expands, more merchants may open up shop, or new side quests may become available. Developing a town feels rewarding, not just because of the items you're given, but it also makes you feel like you really do make a difference to the bugs in need. For the most part, Hollow Knight had you play with a preset character. You could make minor adjustments here and there to skew the gameplay towards your preferred playstyle, but that is nothing compared to this. Almost every piece of Hornet's kit can be customized. First, you equip a crest, each of which has its own attack pattern, passives, and different colored tool slots. Then you choose one skill and fill up your tool slots with the appropriately colored tools. There are so many options and combinations to make your character feel your own. This new RPG aspect creates a vast gameplay difference to Hollow Knight. I like to compare it to the modern Doom games. Doom created the solid foundations. Then not only did Doom Eternal build on it, but it also went in a different direction. The gameplay is familiar, yet each one has a unique core that makes it stand out. We have the same situation here. Silksong uses a lot that Hollow Knight created, but it has molded it to make it feel different. Not strictly better or worse, just different. This will appeal to you more or less depending on your taste and preferences. Personally, I like this blend. Incorporating the metroidvania flow with the traditional RPG design creates a game that can be enjoyed in whatever way you like playing it. Moving away from gameplay now, there is an undeniable improvement in the visual presentation. There are multiple layers of art that create a sense of depth, so much so that sometimes you forget that this is a 2D game. This game has spent 7 years in development, and that comes through very clearly not only in the quality, but also in the tremendous quantity of the artwork. Hollow Knight felt like a bunch of completely different worlds were ripped apart and sewn together randomly to create Hallow Nest. While there is nothing wrong with that, there was also no real sense of continuity. In Silksong, it looks and feels like the kingdom of Pharloom was built around the landscape. Every natural biome or crafted structure flows so naturally into the next. This not only makes it easier for navigation, but easier to understand why things have been built the way they are. This is a truly well-designed world. This time, you aren't a mute protagonist, as Hornet can actually talk. There isn't any choice of dialogue, as that would have just added unnecessary bloat. Again, there is an ensemble of great characters for you to interact with. Meeting up with them regularly along your journey and chatting with them allows you to follow the storyline yourself, instead of needing to watch a Hollow Knight Story Explained video. Speaking of characters, I would also like to talk briefly about the bosses. I didn't do all of the side content, just enough to get the upgrades I needed, so I didn't fight all of the bosses that are on offer. However, they are well designed and there is a large variety to face off against. The fights maintain being interesting and unique, even though there may be too many flying ones, and some earlier fights have been ruined by dealing double damage, but I'll speak more on that later. With that said, there is a specific fight I want to mention. Before this, I had never had a case where defeating a boss made me feel like a bad person. That was until the cogwork dances. It invoked so much emotion in me, making it a really special experience. I enjoy difficult games. If a game is too easy, it can feel like you aren't even playing anything, you're just going through the motions. If a game is too hard, then it can feel like an impossible task. The best kind of difficult game forces you to put the effort in to learn the game, while never allowing it to be so overwhelming that you are completely put off. It took me about 30 hours to beat this game, and I can say with certainty, Silksong starts off hard, and for all the wrong reasons, but it does get easier. I think the reasoning for this can be broken up into 3 major sections: controls, health management, and level design. Hollow Knight had incredibly precise and responsive input, but I'll be honest, it did feel weird at first because it was so rigid and accurate that it almost felt robotic. But once you got the hang of it, you could move your character in the exact way you wanted to. In this game, they have loosened up your character a bit. This makes the controls feel better from the start, but it sacrifices some of that precision you would want for such a difficult game. This isn't a huge deal, but it is definitely something worth mentioning. Next, the pogo jumping. Instead of the traditional downward slash, they have opted for a diagonal attack that goes in the direction you are moving. It looks flashy and cool, but it really is difficult to control. The original pogo attack was all about timing, positioning yourself so that you are close enough to not miss, while keeping a distance so that you don't get hit. This aspect is still here, but its learning curve is made even steeper because you also need to be at the correct angle. It doesn't stop there, because you will also sometimes need to pogo left and right to make your way upwards. It feels very fiddly, trying to constantly move left and right the correct amount while also not missing your timing. It took me a long time to get it right more often than not, and even near the end of the game, I still struggled with it. If this is too difficult for you, you can change your crest to the original pogo attack, but that is not available from the start of the game. Lastly, you have an ability tied to the right bumper. that triples as your first and second tool button. Pressing the button alone, you activate your ability. If you hold up or down with the movement analog and then press it, you use tool 1 or 2 respectively. I have no idea why they decided to map 3 combat options to a single button. There have been many times when I have tried to use a tool but activated my ability instead, which then locked me into an animation. It just felt clunky, and it is very upsetting because how a game feels to play is so important to the overall experience. I think that the changes they have made to the health system have a drastic impact on a new player's experience. Your health, represented by masks in the top left corner of your screen, requires you to spend 9 energy to restore 3 masks. Whereas in Hollow Knight, you could spend 3 energy to restore a single mask of health. Both of these animations take the same amount of time, so at first, you think that they have made it strictly easier, but it's not as simple as that. Not being able to restore your health incrementally means you will always need to fill a whole 9 units of energy before you can heal. This isn't as big of an issue during boss fights because you don't have much time to heal anyway. But when you are exploring the world, it becomes annoying. I would sometimes get stuck on a hard platforming sequence with 7 energy, and since the only way to restore energy is by fighting enemies, I couldn't heal. In the first game, you could assume that everything did 1 mask of damage, and only every now and then you would come across a boss that was scarier than the rest because they could deal 2 masks of damage. Now, you can assume that most bosses past the starting area deal 2 damage. Furthermore, there are a large amount of basic enemies that also deal 2 damage, as well as some traps and spikes. This design really put a bad taste in my mouth, as it gives you less time to learn from your mistakes. Doubling the damage that you take is an artificial way to quickly increase the difficulty of a game without having to make any real changes. I don't like that they have done this here, because they already have such an amazing combat experience, but the learning curve has been ruined. Dying happens a lot. By taking double damage, having a fiddly to learn input system, and not being able to partially heal. It is clear to me that they haven't catered for this in the level design. I had the same problem with Hollow Knight, and instead of this issue being addressed, it has been made much worse. If you need to platform through a section, or fight some hard enemies to reach a boss, you shouldn't have to do them again every time you die to that boss. If you have cleared a section, then clearly you are able to, so why should you be tested again, and again, and again? Not having a respawn point right outside of the boss room is completely unnecessary. From Software was very aware of this issue from their previous titles. That is why in Elden Ring there are checkpoints outside a boss room that act as a temporary respawn point until you leave that area. Continuing with the idea of not being forced to clear the same area multiple times, I do think that it would have been a nice upgrade to be able to fast travel between benches instead of needing to use the fast travel stations. You end up spending a large amount of time traveling to and from different stations, and it doesn't add to the fun of the game. It's just admin. Although I must say, this is much less of an issue later on in the game, as the more upgrades you get, the easier and faster traversing will become. I know I have been complaining a lot in this section, but it's not all doom and gloom. Once you have unlocked some movement abilities, increased your total health, and gotten a damage bump, things begin to smooth out. All of the problems that I have listed only apply during the opening hours of the game, which is a real problem as so many people will develop their opinions during that time and end up leaving because it's too hard. There is a really good game here, but the barrier to entry is just too high. If you want something short, or you want to have the option of quickly finishing up the game once you get bored, this is not it. As I have mentioned so many times before, this game is hard, and it is almost required for you to do side content in order to get past the most difficult sections. Rushing the main quest line is out of the question. If you are the kind of person that likes to sink your teeth into a game, then this is certainly for you. The world is absolutely gigantic. There are plenty of side quests to do and places to explore. This is the kind of game that can absorb all of your time if you wanted to. As I began recording this, Team Cherry published their first update, which reduces the damage dealt by some traps and bosses in Act 1. I do strongly believe that they will continue to update and polish this game just as they did with Hollow Knight, and I do believe that it will eventually have the initial difficulty tuned to the perfect level. Until that happens, I do not recommend this to the majority of players. The current state of the game is not new player friendly enough for me to say it is worth the effort. But for those few players who have made it through Hollow Knight, if you want a new experience in the same world and are willing to push through a challenging start, then I fully recommend Silksong to you. If you have enjoyed this video and would like to see more content like this, my channel is right here. Let me know in the comments what you would like to see next, and I'll see if I can make it happen. Thanks for watching.